5. My first piece of advice is set fewer goals and do less long-term planning. Hear me out. And so this may sound contradictory to some of my content about being patient. And I think long-term goals are very important, but the obsession over the minutia of how you're going to get there is, I believe, an act of mental masturbation. You try and create these massive projections that are based on hundreds of variables that in reality, you just don't know what's going to happen. And so over time, I've consistently trimmed our planning processes such that at this point, I pretty much only care what we're going to do in the next 12 weeks. And beyond that, we might have 1 target or 2 targets by the end of the year, but we're not going to dedicate a lot of resources to this. And this is somebody who's a big fan of preparation. But I've just found that it ended up being a huge waste of time, mostly because whenever I looked at the plans that I made the year before, 1 year later, I was like, man, half this stuff isn't even relevant anymore because of new changes in conditions. And so I will probably continue to lean more in this direction. And I think this has become a little bit more popularized by some of the CEOs like Jensen Huang, who despite having NVIDIA over 30 plus years, has recently talked about how he basically doesn't do a lot of long-term planning because fundamentally you have things that you can do today, and those are the things that you begin to allocate. Now, sometimes what you need to do today is work for something that's going to happen in the future, but you can only control what you do today. And so I've shifted more and more in terms of what will this change about our behavior, and the rest of it, I more or less toss out. So let me give you a couple of visuals to make this real. And so the first thing is that we think that you're gonna have this really neat line of how the growth is going to happen, right? But reality is very messy. And so what's likely going to happen is that you will flatline and then figure something out, and then you'll flatline and then figure something out, and then flatline and then figure something out. This is what it looks like if you were to zoom in on this little area here, right? If you were to zoom in here, it actually looks closer to what this is, which is you have the stagnation and then you have these improvements that occur and then increase revenue. Now, one of the things that's also shifted my perspective on how to plan is, let's say that we've got thing A, thing B, thing C, thing D, thing E that we need to do. Well, before this, I would try and, delegate each of these things to person 1, person 2, person 3, person 4, person 5, and so on. But I would say that appears to me like I have not done my job because I need to do a better job prioritizing. One of these things is the most important. And if you can't decide what that is, then you are not doing your job. And you certainly can't expect your team to make that decision for you. And so I've had to look at this and say, if I could only pick one of these things and we only accomplish that thing, which of these would get us closer to our vision for what the company should be? Which one would move us the furthest forward? Which of these is the biggest domino? And so what I've redone is I say, okay, A is actually the priority. I don't need to order B through C here. I don't need to worry about what order these are in. And then I will take 1 plus 2 plus 3 plus 4 plus 5 and get all of these resources concentrated on solving A. And then what I've found is that once you solve A with all those resources because everyone's aligned, then all of a sudden B happens faster, C happens faster, D happens faster than trying to do them all at once. So let's say that you ran an agency, right? So you do meta ads for small businesses, like a very typical business. So if that was your business, you might say, okay, we need to, get more leads. So that means we're going to increase ads. Okay, that's one of the things. We're going to, increase show up rate because our show up rate sucks. So we're going to try and fix that. We've got to hire, a sales manager and whatever else, right? Like you've got your tasks. I'll just put ... Now, if this was your objective, a good strategist says, given the resources I currently have, what one thing could I do that would make all of these problems disappear? The good strategist would then say, well, if I had a brand and I invested in my brand, well, would that accomplish my leads thing? Yep. Now I wouldn't have ads, but it would accomplish my problem of getting leads. Now, would show up rates be higher if I have a warm audience? Yes. Would my close rate be okay because everyone is being warmer? Probably. Now you might have to still hire the sales manager, but you can see how the entire dynamic would change if only this were true. And so then it follows, okay, well, what are the resources required to make this happen? And if I know what those resources are and I have those resources available, then it would follow that I should do this one thing and then in so doing accomplish all of these other things as a